to those of you that are here. Is there any particular injury or thing that you're looking to learn or that you've had issues with in the past that you want to make sure you learn about? Yeah? That's okay. Because some of those injuries might be something that could be hiking related.
So shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
chronic issues with shoulders, and it has to do mostly with posture, computer.
Mm-hmm.
Once you slouch, then everything starts to go south, and then you have to strengthen those muscles.
Yes. And I can make anything hiking related because hiking is more of a standing and walking activity. So an antidote to the sitting walking. But then you have the big pack. So if you're going to go backpacking is going to be a little bit different than if you just go for a day hike. So and that has to do with you have to slide your hands in. That might be getting a little bit tricky. So that's definitely something that not necessarily common complaint for hiking, but yes, we can definitely talk about that. Any others? Maybe lower back things a little bit? Yes?
Mine's not lower back, but my ankles. I've been getting back out because the weather is finally nice again.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been getting back out, and like I feel like my ankles aren't as like strong or sturdy. Like after a while when I'm walking, and I am wearing like good hiking shoes, they
Mm-hmm.
just don't feel like they feel like wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
Like not as strong.
We were talking about the ankles that they feel weak. And is the feeling of weakness sort of after you've walked?
After I've walked for a little.
For a while. What's a little bit? Like
maybe like
30 minutes or like
yeah, like 20
okay.
to 30 minutes, and I'm
Okay.
like, I'm not doing anything. Like, why is it? Yeah.
Okay. So ankles sort of feeling
Yeah.
sort of fatigued,
Yes.
unstable type of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Despite the boots. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're not high boots like yours.
Are they the shoes that you went to Machu Picchu with?
Yes.
Got it. I know exactly where they are, which they are. They're sort of low, but they're not sneaker height. So
right.
They're mid height. I think it's what are they called? Yeah, they have the support, but they're a little bit. Gotcha.
Yes.
Good. Any others that you can think of? Okay. Well, we might sneak in the lower back things just because that is also a common factor. So, tell me a little bit about the types of hiking that you guys like to do, or the types of, yeah.
I usually hike just around here.
So they
Ball Point.
Yes.
There's a new one. What is it called? Fiddler's Creek. There's
Mm-hmm.
a loop around there.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I know the Fiddler's Creek one. Do we know the Fiddler's?
Yeah, it's
Mr.
not,
standing
it's
right
not
behind
huge,
you.
and it's mostly flat.
Yes. Okay. So mostly
but
flat.
if you gain access on this side street off Church Road and you want to get to Fiddler's Creek, they just have some stepping stones.
So that's a good. The
Yeah.
ankle stability stuff is a good one to be able to like.
I don't want to fall in.
No.
So I actually stepped in, like after a few steps on the
Yeah.
little stepping stones. I was like, I'm getting wet. I'd rather get my feet wet than fall in.
Yes.
So anybody who goes, it depends. I mean, I think there's a loop to do.
Yeah.
We did not do a loop.
Just the up and back.
We had started at Washington Crossing,
Mm-hmm.
looped around in there, then we went down Fiddler's Creek and picked up this new trail that I hadn't been on before.
Always check it out. How about you guys? Day hikes mostly?
Day hikes.
Okay.
Yeah, day hike. I'm in Pennsylvania, so I go to Berkeley Park.
She's all the way on the other side of the river in Pennsylvania.
So Berkeley Park has these really fun little trails.
Has a little bit of small hills.
Yes. And Tyler State Park, I'm always there as
Yeah.
well. They have really fun, different, like either flat or not. It's fun. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys do any big hiking away, couple days?
Yep. I have hiked the Baytona Trail in the Pine Barrens a couple times.
Oh, that's
Takes
cool.
about 8 hours to do in total.
Nice. And so bigger pack because you carry your food and your water. That's not a place where you just, I'm just going to refill my water here.
Not really.
Okay. And then, yeah, as we were talking earlier, kids cramp our style and we don't do big hikes anymore. Not yet. Yet. Yet is the key word. Okay. So now I know to talk a little bit about it. So most of you know who I am. Gianna Bigliani. I'm a physical therapist and I own Fluid Physio. Fluid Physio has been around now for almost 9.5 years. We are right up in Lawrenceville. Before I was a physical therapist, I was a strength and conditioning. I guess I still am a strength and conditioning coach. I just got bored of it. And then I was like, oh, I want to help injured people. And back in those days, I used to do a lot of backpacking. So I would go by myself. Rowing was my sport in college, but so I would go and put my bike on the roof and my backpack, and I would go away for a week, and my mom wouldn't know where I was, and I was like, I'll be fine, because back then, did I? Nope. I didn't really use a phone the way that we use phones today. So the maps and everything. So we're still folded, and I knew exactly where water sources may or may not be. So that was really fun. And then, yeah, I got interested in having a practice. And so now I really enjoy the connecting of people and communities. So if you have seen any of our other talks, they're sort of community based, and I like to connect with everyone to try to really nurture the places that we're at. So that's it. And then I have, since everybody's here, Martha's new to our staff. She's in the front office, and then Easton and Aisha are our other physical therapists that are here. Easton specializes in vestibular stuff, so vertigo, concussions, and any of the other balance. Yes, so that's Easton. And Aisha does a little bit of everything, specializes in jokes. She definitely has great jokes. So injuries. So let's talk about sort of two major injuries. Let's talk about sprains and the ankles, right? So have you actually sprained your ankle before?
Yes. The right one twice. I don't know. It's my specialty, I guess.
So perhaps.
But that was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's still.
Yeah. So ankle sprains are common. Are more common if you sprained your ankle once, you're more likely to sprain it again. Simply because, so here's our foot, and we have most sprains go this way, right? It's like you're stepping and it rolls that way. That's the most common type of sprain. So all the ligaments. So you see how there's the blue and the red over here? That's where muscles are attached, right? So you see lots of blue and lots of red in the bottom of the foot. That's where we have actually 5 layers of fascia and muscles and ligaments underneath that can help support our weight, so that when the heel strikes and we transfer the weight, it is all of that soft tissue that sort of acts like a hammock. In addition to all these other little bones that on the top, there's nothing, no real, except for a couple of little colors there. They're like puzzle pieces. You can see in the bottom, they're very irregularly shaped. And you can see they're kind of like puzzle pieces. So in the same way that I sort of like roll it, or that I'm showing you that things can sort of roll out of place, this one in particular is a big one, the cuboid, that can get kind of stuck this position. And then when we roll our ankles and it goes, all these ligaments, not only they get overstretched, but also the little puzzle pieces can get kind of stuck. The most common one is that it rolls, and then this one gets stuck forward. And then we go back to doing everything we wanted to, but it's kind of stuck forward. In order to put the heel down and step, These two have to glide over top, and then at the bottom, they also have to separate a little bit. If you can see here, this one's a little wider at the bottom or at the front and more narrow in the back. So when it's kind of stuck at the front, well, we can't really bend forward. It feels like you're pinching the front of your foot. Did you ever feel that when you're stretching or doing anything like that, it feels pinchy in the front? That's where it's like, oh, okay, things are not in their ideal position. So it just takes a little bit of movement to put them back where they were, because otherwise, so that's the sprain. A sprain is when you've pulled a ligament. Ligaments connect bone to bone. Tendons, on the other hand, connect bone to muscles. So not only do we have the ligaments on this side, but we also have the tendons. And I brought my favorite book to show the ankle on the side. We have the tendons, and so it's not really blue, but the blue shows to, it's the synovial sheath that goes around the tendon. So it's nicely in blue, so you can see that that's the tendon underneath. And the tendons connect bone to muscles. The tendons have contractile properties, so when the muscle contracts, the tendon does similarly, not to the same extent, but also in the same way. So when our foot rolls, this is the outside of the foot, all of these ligaments, tendons get pulled, and the muscle, put it here, the muscle actually, it's trying to keep you from breaking your foot. The muscle is going to contract, and then you're going to strain your muscle. So strains are going to happen in the muscle tissue, and you pull a muscle. Same thing as straining your back. Yeah. Same thing as, yeah, same idea when you have, now here's it. I'm going to pause for a second because I tend to jump in like 10 different directions. So I'm going to pause. Let's finish the talk on the sprains. So what happens to those ligaments is if they're overstretched, you know, older rubber bands, they stretch, but then eventually they just don't go back. And that's what happens to our ligaments. You may have overstretched them at any point in your life. Now, if you are like our kids when they're teenagers and little kids, oh, they're going to grow. No, they're just going to keep growing and it's going to go right back. But once you start to get into your 20s, if you have a bad enough sprain, they're just not going to go right back to where they were. They're overstretched. And now we need to deal with, oh, yes, we talked about putting the muscles back into the joints, the bones back into their place. But now what is it? What else do we need to work on so that it doesn't feel like it's going to roll out again because we don't have any other support? Well, all these muscles of the tendons that go through there, I'm going to take one more. Oh, I don't think, did we bring the muscle chart? Ah, okay. That would be awesome. Thank you. Because otherwise this is just going to be like, meh. Last year when I was giving this talk, I kept doing this, but I kept doing this because I can't see anymore. But now I have bifocal lenses, so I can see much better. So if you can see those tendons, now this is a little tricky. This is sort of where we can see this side, but you can see the tendons out to the side, right? Those tendons go to muscles all the way up in the legs. And those are the ones that end up being pulled or strained. Okay, so so we have extrinsic muscles in the foot, meaning the muscle belly is up in the leg, even though the tendons are down that attach right into the foot. Or intrinsic muscles, they're all the ones that are actually in the foot. We were talking about the 5 layers. There's different tiny little muscles that support us. So intrinsic versus extrinsic, we can strain both of them. And when the ligaments get overstretched, we're going to have to then rely on those muscles of the ligaments that go through the ankle, so mostly extrinsic muscles, to strengthen it to make sure that they have control over the excessive movement that the sprain has caused. So let's see, are you guys gonna stick here? Oh no, this isn't. Oh, maybe. Oh, maybe, yes. The bottom one might fall and startle us later, but that's okay. So, ankle. I'm gonna talk a little bit more and stay with the sprain aspect because our knees can also be sprained, right? So sometimes the rolling of the ankle is one. The other one, especially with the rocks, right? That it's like you step on a rock and your foot might compensate for it, but sometimes your joint, as you're stepping to the next rock, may sort of have different forces on it that you might pull if your ankle and your boots supported you, right? Because that's why we have high tops. That's why I love my high boots, because I can rely on them for stability. That your boot might support you, but then you might sprain your knee. So here's our knee, our very well-loved knee, because it's been falling apart. And here are the ligaments around it. That knees are meant to bend, obviously. And actually, there's a little bit of rotation that happens in the knees, right, as we pivot and rotate. So what ends up happening is we can also pull some of those ligaments in the knee. So I sort of did this. This is sort of what could happen. This is a very short person, right? We can see there's two bones over the side. This is the fibula and the tibia, and they would go just like this. So if we roll in, right, this foot kind of rolls here, then this sort of keeps going, and the tissues on the outside of the knee can be strained or sprained or strained also, because we also have muscles that then come the quads. The other one that goes over the knee is the IT band, right? A lot of people tend to say, oh, my IT band is tight. The IT band actually attaches to the fibula, which is the same little bone that is here. So what happens when we sprain our ankles is this gets stuck forward, and the fibula, it's supposed to glide back and forth. When it doesn't glide back and forth because it's stuck forward, well, guess what has to compensate for that is up the top at the knee. Then at the knee, this moves way too much, and that is where the IT band attaches. So then you can end up with a lot of tissue tightness and pain here too. If your ankle is stiff, then something else is compensating for it. So that's the one in the knee. You're really not gonna, well, we'll talk about that later. Okay. So we're gonna then slide into we're talking about this into the quad and how the quad can get sprained or strained in one of these things, or even as we land, right? Because the other part is, oh, I landed, I have the rocks to step over, and I landed, my foot kind of wanted to roll over, but my muscles protected me from doing it, and I strained the perineal or the calf muscles in the process because they got pulled. The same thing happens to the quad. I came over, I landed, and the muscle overworked, and so a strain is basically a partial tear. And there's different levels of strain, different grades of strains, all the way from a little micro tear, like when we do a lot of extra workout or extra walking, feels a little sore, or little micro tears, but then all the way to a full strain, that then it becomes a full tear of the muscle. And then you can see it separating. Sometimes they need surgery, just ugly stuff. So they can also happen in your quads, especially when you're going downhill. When you're hiking downhill, does it feel harder, right, than when you're going uphill sometimes? when you just have a steep
Pressure.
or more pressure? Yes, because your muscles have to actually work harder. They have to generate more force as you're going downhill because they have to decelerate you from gravity taking your body. And that's when we're going to talk about a little later about how do we help that, not only in our muscles, but in our joints. Because when we have to, they're overworking, it's also compressing those joints at the same time. So quad. So this is also the descent is the toughest part. So now around here, depends on ball pate. My uncle is from Switzerland, and he came to visit, and we're like, yeah, let's go hiking. We're gonna go to the Baldpate Mountain. He's like, where? What mountain? Right? It's a little different. So, but Baldpate, there's the one part where you go up, and it's pretty high. Then there's big rocks, and it's really fun to figure out which is the one that moves. I don't remember, but they move, but they're steady. So we have to rely not only on your ankle muscles, but also on your other muscles, your thigh muscles, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your core. And even though we talk about the core, the shoulder blade muscles, I like to bringing the shoulder blade muscles with the hip muscles to add to supporting the core because our limbs are out there. And if our shoulder blade muscles aren't steady, our rotator cuff can get irritated sometimes too in the process of hiking. And so right there with straining, it's our back muscles. And so a strain happens anytime our muscles are overworked, right? We're doing them too much. And then so it could happen in a quick jolt where it overworks and tries to hold on to something and adds extra force. But it could also happen over time, right? So if we're walking, we're hiking, and then the muscles it's a lack of endurance can make the muscles, they have to overwork, right? But they may not be equipped to work that often, and they can get strained. Not necessarily a big strain, but just small little micro tears or small little pulls alongside of the back. This isn't the best one to show all the different layers of muscles, but this is, like I said, it's my favorite book. So, for the back, layers. So here we have, I marked it somehow. This picture, it's basically this. On the top, we have big muscles. I'll take that one. You're going to come back out with me. We have shoulder blade muscles, which we marked because we teach people how they stabilize. We have the lower trap, the rhomboids, the middle traps. They stabilize the shoulder blade, yet they attach to the spine. Under those muscles, now, come back over here. I really like my little... Under those superficial muscles, we have our back muscles. Do you see how long they go all the way from to the sacrum all the way up? And there's different layers. They go from big, so, oh, I forgot I have a spine here. Different layers. One side of our spine has colors, just like the foot. The other one doesn't. So different layers. Some of them go from the sacrum to here. Others go from here to here. And others go from to the top. And this is the top of our head. If we kind of touch this part, that's what this part is. So, but if you look at it closely, there really isn't much color to the bones because not many attachments happen on the bones, right? So how do we stabilize it? What happens when we strain our back is that there are some, actually, you can see it more through here, is that we have small, now you can see it here, however, let's put him down and bring this one back to show you the tiny little muscles. So those are those muscles. Then we go a deeper layer, and they're really, really tiny. They're called multifidi, and different, there's also intercostal muscles. Do you see how there's like, they go from one level to the transverse process and then another level to 2 levels below. So they're really, really small. Here you are. You can see that. And not just from the spine, from one vertebra to the other, but also in between the ribs, because the ribs attach at the spine. So when these are the ones that stabilize, check it out. Those are the ones that stabilize. Well, eventually, because they've been overworked, they get tired. And so the larger muscles over the top, that are not here, that were on the other side, the larger muscles over the top start taking over because they're bigger. They can work harder. But those little stabilizing ones don't. They got tired, fatigued. So when they get tired and fatigued, something along the way, when it comes to like a little like, oh my God, they didn't work anymore. Or when it comes to, I did a big pull and like, I did something because I was going to fall, or I don't want to fall. I get my foot wet, but not fall. Then those can get strained because then these may overwork eventually, but nothing was stabilizing the back. And that's when you can get, it's something pinching a little nerve? Is the fact that everything tightened up on you, then pinch a little sciatic, peripheral nerve, which is the sciatic one. Did it shift the bones? So then one little nerve got pinched as a result of shifting because the deep stabilizing muscles didn't get to stabilize the spine. And we have ligaments in the spine too, but it's so flexible and mobile that things, for that reason, so that we can move around and not be injured, but eventually something gives in. And it also has to do with how well hydrated was I? Did I have a good enough sleep? Are my muscles prepared for this kind of activity? Was I distracted? That they sort of add up to the injuries that we end up with, that we know how we can prevent. Okay, so how do we prevent those? Those are going to be with either mobility exercises if your joints are stiff, strengthening exercises to get strong before you go out on a hike, and then flexibility exercises, which are going to be, we're going to do after the hike, we're going to stretch the muscles and some of that. And so since we're talking about it, the scan that you did, that you have, this scan will take you to our website where we have the past workshop recorded and put there. And then we'll put this one instead because now we have a mic on you and we could hear you better, Matt. And then we also have two different things. We're talking about mobility. So for mobility exercises, they involve the joints. These are the ones that we would do in the morning when we first wake up. Some of us already do it just because it feels good. Like, I'm just going to pull this and this. And So when you pull these up, it'll have hip mobility, lower back, mid back. This is hip and back, and it gives you some instructions. And the child's pose cobra one. If your ankle is stiff because you've had injuries, make sure that you do some mobility. So let's see if this is one way to find out. Everybody stand up. Let's see if you need mobility for the ankle. Just have to stand up. Good. Just a little space. And then what I want you to try is bringing your knees forward. And you should feel eventually a stretch in the back of your calf. You can do it one leg at a time, right? So the back one brings that forward. And when I'm doing this, do I feel pinchiness in the front? Or is my foot cheating and turning? Which means your ankle isn't able to do this, but because it's stiff, it does this. And then compare that to the other side. Does it go the same way? So for me, when I was little, I broke my right ankle. And so that bone healed in a way that that's it. And it doesn't go very far. So the idea then, one of those exercises is ankle mobility. We want to get as much movement as possible before your hike so that once you hike and you take little steps, that's a way to compensate. That's the extra movement will absorb the forces instead of your muscles. So the one that is stiff, you're going to put in the front. And the other thing to look out for is your hips and your knee need to be facing forward. So that you'll notice that if you look up, your knee, if that was the stiffer one, and you start doing this, the knee is going to want to roll in. We don't want to let that do that, not only because it's going to end up putting pressure on the knee, but then it's not getting the forces where we want it. We want it to stretch. Here, let me slide this up a little bit. There you go. So the movement, the mobility exercise is just doing a little bit of this back and forth to create. You have the pressure of your body, and then you're going to create movement here. And the goal is, can it be straight, right? Because then if this starts tilting, oh, that's not it. Then you're going to end up with issue in the knee, and that doesn't feel good. If your foot starts doing this, when you lift with the rotator cuff, and when we're hiking, right? You lift with the core and you let your spine support it. And then we'll go back. We'll go back to review. Then the other one that we have, oh, in that one, oh no, that's it for mobility. And the other one goes back to doing more strengthening things. I'm gonna speak about strengthening in a little bit. I wanted to talk about prevention. So Matt, tell us, we were talking about, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Dehydration is one of the bigger injuries, right? We want to make sure that we're well hydrated. And then any other skin things like blisters, abrasions, you get a little cut, all the prickle bushes are starting to come back with their leaves. So now we're going to know, oh, wait, that's the prickle bush. We're going to avoid it, except now when none of the leaves have gone out, you can't see them as well, and then they get taken. So blisters and insect bites is another one. So for that, blisters, now that we see that possibilities of injury, how we prevent all those. So speaking of that first aid, there's a number of different first aid things that we have. Right, Matt?
Of course.
Ready for you? Show us your first aids, because if I'm just going to go for a short couple of hours here, do I need to take something big? Not really. What would you take? Tell us a little bit about what you have. And I can help you hold it if you need to.
First aid, if you're going out just for a couple hours, a day or two, you don't need to take much. They come in different sizes. They have your basic necessities. They're going to have a anti-clot in case for some reason, God forbid, you get a deep gash, you need it to clot better. You're going to have gauze. You're going to have simple band-aids, moleskin, tape, basically anything you would need to bide your time until you can get better help. And that's all you're looking to do. You're not looking to cure it yourself. You're just looking to stabilize it until you can get more help if you need it. With the blisters, this is your best friend, moleskin. To be honest with you, 95% of the people use it wrong. Everybody thinks, oh, I take it, I cut a piece, pop it on the blister. You don't do that. If you can prevent the blister, that's the best thing. So proper fitting shoes, proper socks, and we'll talk about socks in a little bit. Also, be conscious of when you're walking, if you get any hot spots on your feet, you'll be walking and all of a sudden it's like, wow, my heel's warm, or my toe's warm, or the ball of my foot's getting warm. That means there's friction. It's tighten your shoes, change your socks, or maybe moleskin to prevent the friction. If you do get a blister with the moleskin, and came prepared,
Nice.
what you're going to do is pretend this is moleskin and you have a blister. You don't just stick it on.
That makes it work.
What you do is take your moleskin, fold it in half, and you're just going to have a little arts and crafts. Cut out a hole that goes around the blister. So you have the moleskin surrounding the blister, but the blister is open. Take your second piece of moleskin and put it on top. So what that does is you're not putting pressure on the blister. You're creating a cavity of comfort.
Extra space where that blister and liquid can go into instead of being continued to.
If you just put it on there, it's gonna, if it moves, it's gonna tear the skin, the blister's gonna pop. Or when you go to remove it, yeah, you're taking the blister with it. Very, very simple, but it's the proper way to do it. Oh, that was me.
Okay.
And first aid kits, they can be very, very basic, all for what you're planning to do, where you're going, how far you're going. If you know you're prone to certain injuries or certain things, you can pre-plan. You can also put together your own kits. Very simple: Band-Aids, tape, gauze, tampon, maxi pad. Very absorbent, great in a crisis situation. Moleskin, Tylenol / aspirin. Aspirin, I say, because it's a blood thinner. So if for some reason you do end up in the sun too long and you start pinking up, I know it's probably wrong to say, if you take an aspirin, it thins blood and it can actually relieve sunburn before it can progress. So just different little things like that.
Also, if you do a little roll of the ankle, you can take a little bit so that you have to hike back to get some help. So it can also help you prevent the pain or allow you to walk a little bit better. Not that, yes, it's not the greatest to thin your blood right before you leave, but you can put some Tylenol too. That can be instead of that. Go ahead.
Okay. That's basically first aid kits. Does anybody have any questions on the kits themselves?
Yeah.
Do you ever put the cushion on the inside of the shoe itself as opposed to on the blister?
Oh, that's a great question.
Well, put it on the shoe?
Yeah.
On the inside of your shoe. Like,
So you
put it
know
on your
that-
shoe instead of the blister itself.
You know that there's that one spot of your shoe that always gives you a blister.
Like, what would be the best
Mm-hmm.
thing to use to do that?
Personally, it's probably better to put it on the foot itself, just because it's going to be foot, moleskin, sock, and then your shoe. So hopefully you can just get that friction to keep moving further out. Sock wise, the old saying is cotton kills. Cotton, if it gets wet, it does not insulate. It may be comfortable, but as soon as it's wet, you're done.
The wetness adds to the skin irritability and it becomes clammy and it's easier to break down.
Like here we have Darn Tough and Smart Wool. They're all merino wool, so it's a nice wool. It's naturally moisture wicking, so it's going to pull the sweat away from your foot. You're not going to get that extra friction. It gets rid of the need of having a sock liner. Um, Even if they're wet, they're still going to insulate in cold weather. They're very durable, machine washable. Uh, Most of those brands are lifetime guarantee, so maybe paying a premium, but it's a guaranteed for life, and your feet are going to thank you. Shoe wise, you said about your ankles. Okay, look at how they're tied. Some shoes have a second set of eyelets, which are, mine don't have them because
Yeah.
mine are cheap.
Mine do.
I know.
Mine are my good ones.
This right here, if you tighten up here, what it does is it actually pulls in to support your ankle a little bit more. So it may be just a matter of changing how you tie them and how tight they are in certain areas. The other thing is you may want to go to a higher boot.
Yeah, I was thinking of.
And then the same thing. You don't have to have it tight up top,
Right.
but as long as you have it at that joint, it'll give you that extra stability.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is that you don't want to make it too tight because then your toes will go numb. That's not fun. So you can always, these are nice because I can make this looser, but then I can make the top a little bit tighter. It keeps the tension from going into the lower ones. So that's also nice.
Will the merino wool sock work for sweaty feet people?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's naturally moisture wicking, so it's gonna and even like I said, even if they get soaked, they're still gonna give you the same benefit of if they were dry with the being an insulated property, and it's not going to create any more friction.
So since I took my boot off and we're talking about a lot of ankle sprain things, so one way to make sure that you get that tied correctly, because there's one thing to like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tie it and it's tight and here I go. Well, if I were to just tie it like that, once I take my foot up, it's like, oh, I can still feel my foot wiggling. So a way to make sure that that doesn't happen is, so for start with it here, right? But then I sort of like tap my heel. So then I can tie and make it a little tighter in that one spot that I know it's right here. But now the heel's all the way there, so I have all the extra space there. So now I can make this as tight as I want to prevent, I like snug at the top, but not the bottom.
But sometimes when the laces are too long, I have found,
Mm-hmm.
all right, do it at the top tight,
Mm-hmm.
and the laces are so long, so then I go back down.
That's
and
a
so
great
I'm
idea.
ending up tying right
Mhm.
there.
Yep,
And-
that's a great idea too.
and
Because
that
yeah, they
seems
make them really
pretty
tight.
stable.
But when I do this, now I put it down, now it's not wiggly anymore. I can feel tons of space in my foot here and then more there. The question earlier that Aisha had that like, do I put, if I feel the shoe and it's tense and it's tight on the one side, do I put something extra? Well, if you put something extra in a place that's already tight, that's just going to cause irritability earlier. So a better solution is going to be, I think a quick solution is the extra socks or putting it on your shoe, on your foot. But the better solution is get bigger shoes. Get some shoes that have bigger toe box, because otherwise that's where you're more likely to get irritation. Yeah.
Other than the advantage of being higher to protect your ankle, what's the advantage of having hiking boots versus really good sneakers?
The stability. Most of your sneakers, they flex a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Your boots are going to be a little bit more rigid, so you're going to have better traction. They're not going to slide on the bottom as much Like if you're, we call it rock hopping. If you're going from
Yeah.
rock to rock, a sneaker, your foot's going to move in there because
They're
there's
meant
not
to be
that's
moved
there's not
too.
that extra base. Um, it's just going to give you that extra protection, impact. Um, it just makes it more rugged.
Sneakers depends because there's so many different types of sneakers, right? The sneakers that you have right now look like they're made for walking. Walking is a straightforward movement. So they have the material that they are, that's fabric. So it's meant to be, you're only going forward, you're not cutting, you're not pivoting, or you don't have little rocks that are going to make your foot rotate slightly. So they're not made for lateral forces that, well, you're not going to pivot when you hike, that maybe a rock will. Dirt, they have the much bigger nubs. If you look at your sneakers in the bottom, they're a little bit flatter, right? They have some, but not as big of a knob as the other ones. That if you hit, or if you're on a rock and if you're going across the creek, well, these are going to stick, but extra water is going to go through the holes and not in between that make you slip. So better anti-slipping for it. But it also depends if you're going to go in the Lawrence Hopewell Trail that it's totally flat. It's like, okay, well, you'll be okay.
Yeah, well, I did Machu Picchu with just sneakers, and I did Alaska with just sneakers, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, you need hiking boots and all this kind of stuff." And I just felt like it was going to be too constricting.
So you had lower sneakers when you did Machu Picchu.
Yes, but I was doing a lot. We were doing a lot of trails and hiking like 6 hours straight to different archaeological sites. So I needed the extra because I was gonna just get like the sneakers. And I was like, I need a little more, especially for like the sliding and the making sure because I slope a lot, a little clumsy. So that's why I stepped it up to the hiking shoe because I needed that extra support and the extra like grippiness.
Mhm. And ultimately, it's what are you going to do? This is sort of like insurance, right? Do I really need insurance? Like, what? Do I really need it? Well, chances are you probably won't need it, and we just paid out a whole bunch of money, right? But what if you do? And this can prevent things from going. So, with the same idea, did you want to say add something?
It doesn't. I always felt that they rub right here on your bone.
Yeah, so it depends because you don't have to put them so tight in that area, right? Or socks. Like I'm not wearing the right socks for it because I knew I wasn't going to be going, but it also protects from like ticks and other stuff like that from actually going into the skin. But if it's rubbing, then either it's too tight or it's not tight enough that you're giving it extra space to rub. They may not be the right shoes for you either. There's so many different kinds of boots that it's ultimately whichever feels more comfortable.
I mean, there, like she was saying, there's so many different types. You have your regular sneakers, then you go up to trail runners, a little bit more aggressive tread, but still have the feel of a sneaker. And you have your low hikers, your mid hikers, your high hikers, and then you have your mountaineering boots. Mountaineering boots is if you're doing K2, Everest, they're just insane. Me, I've done the Rockies in high hiking boots, in mids, and in barefoot shoes. I've done 230, 240 miles in a pair of five fingers, which
in between the toes.
I loved it. I don't like weight on my feet.
Yeah, so it depends. You like.
So it's whatever you're comfortable with, but also keep in mind it's just like an animal. Oh, I want to pet that. Well, you got to accept the fact that I might get bit, stung, scratched. So.
And how is that lesser stability going to affect you above? Because if your shoe's not keeping you from it, well, something else is, right? But it's totally your choice.
If your feet aren't happy, that could ruin your entire trip. So you don't want something that's too heavy to where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm walking with bricks on my feet.
That's what I always.
Yeah. And that's my. I don't like heavy shoes. So I sacrifice the security, the insurance of the ankle support for something lighter because
That's what you like.
personally, it makes my trip better.
How do you feel about orthotics in hiking? How do you feel about orthotics in your hiking boots or whatever you're wearing?
I've never used them. Um,
It depends.
if
That's
you
a big what's right for each
if you
person.
need orthotics, I'd say yeah, but prepare with them. Make sure the boots are broken in using them. Any of your shakedown hikes or anything, if you're doing something big, don't go into it blind. But I say that's another personal thing.
Speaking of personal things, hydration. We were talking about hydration and how many different kinds of simple water bottles that if I'm going to go for a couple of hours, it's like, do I really need? I do, because my kids will say, "Hey, did you bring water? I want water." Or, oh, it's really humid and it's hot. But if it's for like an hour, I don't feel like carrying a water bottle. I'm just going to go and come back and that. But if you're go ahead. We have different choices.
Hydration, start early. If you know you're doing a big hike or something like that, start hydrating 2 days ahead of time. Make sure that you're not starting out at a deficit already.
Because if you're thirsty, you're dehydrated.
Then when it comes to actually out there, you can do water bottles. I grabbed this one because if you're getting water out of a stream and you're filtering it, most of the time the filters will screw right onto here. So you can just pump straight out, you get your filtered water, safe to drink. Rinse it out, put it in your freezer, because then you don't have to worry about it growing any mildew or anything. Otherwise,
And they're small that you can just,
oh yeah,
it slides anywhere.
I mean, would you put like soapy water in it and it would rinse out?
I-
Or generally?
there are Alka-Seltzer type tabs that you can throw in that'll sanitize them. If you rinse them right after you're done using them and throw them in the,
Yeah, that's my
yeah.
Yeah, if it's only water, it's
Yeah. I mean, I've done them to where I put the electrolyte tabs in them, and then as soon as I'm done, I rinse them out, I throw them in the freezer.
that's a great.
I kill the life of them. Instead of it being able to last 2-4 years, I get a year out of them. Because then all of a sudden, it's like, even if I put fresh water in them, there's still a taste. So
With the electrolyte tabs. Yeah.
the noons or something like that.
Yeah.
Just, that's me. And then they also have the fanny pack one.
That we hadn't seen, and when we had it, we're like, oh, that's cool.
What's
For
that?
the dog.
For the dog, it's waste level.
Yeah, you can put it on the dog. Yeah.
Oh, your little kids here.
Yeah. So same type thing. It has a smaller bladder in it. Still has your bite valve, so you're just drinking it out of a straw. Some people like these, some people don't. Some people would rather have the backpack. If you're doing large backpacking hikes, 90% of your packs already have them built in. So you have your drinking water.
Oh, and this has a filter sort of in there, it seems like. Oh, no, it's just the
No,
lid.
I think
Yeah.
it's just packaging.
Which is-
Up and cracking the waist belt. All of that. There should be room. It should be loose on your shoulders, and then the sternum strap just keeps it from bouncing. These, you're right. Most of the weight goes right onto your shoulder, and you're talking 2 liters, so it's what, 4.9 pounds.
Yeah,
So-
that would annoy me.
And then you throw another half pound, and before you know it, you have 7 pounds sitting on your shoulder, and it's like, oh, that's not enjoyable.
Or now it could be then more of an issue for people that have the shoulder problems. And so speaking of shoulder problems, I want to go to, we talked about some of the different hiking sticks. The idea with them, there's different kinds. And when you use them,